It was 2:14 in the morning and I was staring at the ceiling of my bedroom. The house was completely silent except for the rain tapping against the window pane, but that wasn't what had woken me up. I was lying perfectly still, holding my breath, listening to a sound that shouldn't have been there. It was a slow, deliberate shifting weight. Creak, pause, creak. It was coming from directly above my bed, moving across the ceiling with the distinct heavy rhythm of human footsteps. The attic was supposed to be sealed, empty, and locked. But as I watched the drywall bow ever so slightly under the unseen pressure, I realized someone was up there. And worse, they were pacing back and forth, waiting for me to go to sleep. I had moved into the house in late October just as the weather in Oregon was turning cold and unpredictable. It was a charming, single-story craftsman built in the 1940s, located at the end of a quiet cul-de-sac in a suburb of Portland. For a 26-year-old nurse working grueling 12-hour shifts, finding an affordable detached rental house felt like a miracle. After years of sharing cramped apartments with loud roommates, I was desperate for my own space, a sanctuary where I could decompress in absolute silence. The landlord, a tired-looking older man who lived 2 states away, had handed me the keys with a brief tour. He pointed out the quirks. The hot water took a minute to kick in, the floorboards in the kitchen sloped slightly, and the attic was off-limits. He explained that it was just a crawl space used for insulation and old ductwork, and the heavy wooden hatch in the hallway ceiling was rusted shut anyway. I didn't care. I had a spacious living room, a cozy bedroom, and a lock on the front door. I was thrilled. During the first few weeks, I spent my days off painting the walls, arranging my furniture, and making the space my own. The layout was simple. The front door opened into the living room, which flowed into a small kitchen. A short hallway led to the bathroom and the single bedroom at the back of the house. Right in the middle of that hallway ceiling was the attic hatch. It was a square piece of heavy plywood painted the same dull white as the ceiling, secured by a metal latch that looked older than I was. I noticed early on that the latch was slightly bent, preventing it from sitting completely flush, but it held the heavy board in place. I never gave it a second thought. At the time, I didn't understand why that tiny mechanical flaw would eventually become the most terrifying detail of my life. For the first month, everything was perfectly ordinary. I worked, I slept, I drank coffee on the porch. But as winter set in, the isolation of the house began to feel a little different. The quiet wasn't just peaceful anymore, it felt heavy. The first sign that something was wrong was so insignificant that I almost completely ignored it. It started in the kitchen. I am a creature of strict habit, especially when I'm exhausted from working back-to-back night shifts. I always kept a specific brand of granola bars in the left corner of the pantry, and I always drank a glass of milk before bed. One morning, after waking up from a deep, dreamless sleep, I went to the kitchen and noticed the pantry door was open a fraction of an inch. Inside, the box of granola bars was sitting on the middle shelf, not the left corner, and the carton of milk in the fridge felt significantly lighter than it should have. I stood there in my pajamas, blinking at the shelves, trying to piece together my memory. I rationalized it instantly. I had worked a 14-hour shift the day before. I was practically a zombie when I came home. I must have grabbed a snack in a half-asleep daze and put the box back in the wrong spot. You don't immediately assume the worst when your own exhaustion is a perfectly logical explanation. But a few days later, it happened again. This time, it wasn't just food. I had left a pile of mail on the kitchen counter before leaving for work. When I returned, the mail was scattered, and a heavy kitchen knife I kept in a wooden block was lying flat on the countertop. I froze in the doorway, my keys still in my hand. My heart gave a little flutter of unease. I walked through the house, turning on every light, checking the locks on the windows and the deadbolt on the front door. Everything was completely secure. There was no sign of forced entry. The windows were locked from the inside. I sat on the couch and tried to calm down. I told myself that the vibration of a passing truck had knocked the mail over, and maybe I had left the knife out after making dinner the night before and simply forgotten. The human brain is incredibly skilled at constructing safe narratives to protect itself from panic. But deep down, a quiet primal alarm had been tripped. I wouldn't realize until later that the door had never been locked to the person who was already inside.
The second warning was impossible to blame on a lapse in memory. It was late November, and the rain had been coming down in sheets for 3 days straight. I came home from a day shift around 8 p.m. The house was pitch black. I unlocked the front door, kicked off my wet shoes, and walked down the hallway to use the bathroom. When I flipped the light switch, a wave of warm, humid air hit my face. The bathroom mirror was completely fogged over, thick with condensation. The air smelled strongly of my own body wash. I stepped toward the shower and touched the curtain. It was soaking wet. The bottom of the porcelain tub was still pooling with warm water, draining slowly. My stomach dropped into a bottomless pit of ice. Someone had just taken a shower in my house. Within the last 20 minutes, I backed out of the bathroom, my pulse pounding in my ears. I grabbed the heavy flashlight I kept by the front door and systematically searched the entire house. I checked under the bed, inside the closets, behind the doors. The house was completely empty. I even checked the windows again, all locked from the inside. My phone buzzed in my pocket, making me jump out of my skin. It was just a text from my coworker, asking if I had made it home in the storm. I stared at the screen, my hands shaking. How could someone take a shower in a locked house and vanish without a trace? The only logical conclusion was that I had left a window unlocked. A vagrant had slipped in to get warm, heard my car pull up, and escaped out the back door just before I walked in. I immediately called the non-emergency police line. 2 officers arrived half an hour later. They walked the perimeter, checked the locks, and shined their flashlights into the bushes. They were polite but dismissive. They found no muddy footprints, no signs of forced entry, and no missing valuables. One of the officers suggested that maybe my water heater was malfunctioning and releasing steam, or that a pipe had backed up. It sounded ridiculous, but I desperately wanted to believe it. To help ease my mind, I asked my friend David to come over the next afternoon. David was a towering guy, deeply practical, and not easily spooked. He walked through the house with me, inspecting every corner. When we stood in the hallway, I pointed up at the attic hatch. I asked him to check it. He grabbed a stepladder from his truck, pushed against the heavy plywood, and slid it to the side. A shower of dust and dead spiders rained down onto the floor. He shined his high-powered flashlight into the darkness. I held my breath, waiting for him to shout, but he just coughed and pulled his head back down. He told me it was completely empty. Just old pink insulation, some wooden beams, and a thick layer of undisturbed dust. He said the latch on the hatch was so stiff that nobody could open it quietly anyway. He helped me install a secondary chain lock on the front door, patted my shoulder, and told me I was just stressed from work. For a brief, shining moment, I felt a massive wave of relief. The police had cleared the house. David had checked the attic. The doors were double locked. I was safe. I was just letting my imagination run wild. But I had overlooked one detail. I hadn't gone up the ladder to look inside the attic myself. The false sense of security lasted exactly 4 days. It was a Tuesday, my day off. I spent the afternoon cleaning the house and doing laundry. By nightfall, I was lying on the couch in the living room, mindlessly scrolling through my phone while a movie played on the TV. The house was cozy and warm. I opened my camera roll to find a picture of my schedule I had taken earlier that week. As I scrolled up, my thumb froze. Nestled between a photo of my cat at my parents' house and the picture of my work schedule were 3 new photographs. I hadn't taken them. My throat went entirely dry as I tapped on the first thumbnail to enlarge it. The image was dark, grainy, and slightly blurred. It took my eyes a few seconds to adjust and recognize the shapes. It was a picture of my living room. Specifically, it was a picture of me, asleep on the couch wrapped in a blanket. The angle was high up, looking down. I swiped to the second photo. It was closer. a picture of my face, eyes closed, deep in sleep. The timestamp on the image data read 3:14 a.m. from the night before. I couldn't breathe. My lungs felt like they had been filled with cement. Someone had been standing directly over me while I slept, holding my own unlocked phone. I swiped to the third photo. It wasn't of me. It was a selfie. The flash was off, but the ambient light from the street lamp outside illuminated a face. It was a gaunt, hollow-eyed man with greasy, matted hair, grinning widely, exposing ruined teeth. And behind his head, I recognized the background. It was the slanted wooden beams and pink insulation of my attic. The point of no return had arrived, tearing away every rational explanation I had clung to. The threat wasn't outside. It wasn't a random vagrant passing through. He had been living inside my house, above my head, this entire time. A sudden, horrifying realization hit me like a physical blow. The attic hatch was in the hallway. The only way he could get down was through that hatch, and to get back up he would have to pull it shut behind him. I slowly lowered the phone. The house was dead silent. I was sitting on the couch in the living room. To get to the front door, I had to walk past the hallway entrance. I sat perfectly still, listening. My heart was hammering violently against my ribs. I tried to map out an escape plan. My car keys were on the kitchen counter. My shoes were by the front door. If I moved quickly, I could be outside in 3 seconds. I slowly shifted my weight on the cushions, preparing to stand. Then I heard it. From the hallway, barely 10 feet away, came a soft, metallic scraping sound. It was the bent latch of the attic hatch being slowly pushed aside. Adrenaline flooded my system. The sound was agonizingly slow, deliberate. A faint sprinkle of dust hit the hardwood floor. He was coming down. Right now. I didn't think. I just reacted. I rolled off the couch onto the floor, ignoring the pain in my shoulder, and scrambled quietly on my hands and knees toward the kitchen. The faint moonlight coming through the blinds was my only illumination. I reached up and blindly patted the kitchen counter for my keys. My hand brushed against the fruit bowl, the mail, the toaster. The keys weren't there. Panic seized my throat. I always put my keys on the counter. Always. But they were gone. A heavy, sickening thud echoed from the hallway. He had dropped to the floor. I was trapped. The front door was locked with the deadbolt and the new chain David had installed. It would take too much time to fumble with it in the dark, and it was right next to the hallway opening. He would see me immediately. I heard the soft, padding sound of bare feet stepping onto the hardwood. He was walking toward the living room. I crawled frantically around the kitchen island, pressing my back against the cabinets, trying to make myself as small as possible. The kitchen window was above the sink. It was an old sash window, the kind that squeaked loudly when you pushed it up. I had no other choice. The footsteps stopped at the edge of the living room. I heard the faint rustle of fabric. He was standing exactly where I had been sitting seconds ago. I heard him whisper something under his breath, a low, raspy hum that sent a violent shudder down my spine. I stood up, grabbed the heavy wooden knife block from the counter, and hurled it with all my strength toward the living room archway. It smashed into the wall with a deafening crash, scattering heavy knives across the floor. The man let out a startled, animalistic hiss. In that split second of distraction, I spun around, unlocked the kitchen window, and shoved it upward. It screamed in protest, sliding up just enough for me to fit through. I threw myself forward, diving headfirst through the opening. The wooden frame scraped violently against my ribs, and I tumbled out into the freezing mud of the backyard, landing hard on my shoulder. I didn't stop to look back. I scrambled to my feet, ignoring the searing pain in my side, and sprinted across the dark yard. I scaled the low wooden fence, tearing my sweatpants on a nail, and ran barefoot down the middle of the wet, empty street. I didn't stop screaming until a porch light flicked on 3 houses down and a neighbor opened their door. I called the police from the neighbor's kitchen, sobbing hysterically, unable to form complete sentences. It took 4 officers, guns drawn, to enter my house. I sat shivering in the back of an ambulance, wrapped in a foil blanket, watching the flashing red and blue lights paint the front of my beautiful little house. 20 minutes later, a sergeant walked out the front door and approached the ambulance. His expression was grim. He told me the house was empty. The man had escaped out the front door, leaving it wide open. But what they found inside explained everything. When the police entered the attic, they didn't just find empty insulation. Behind a false wall of stacked cardboard boxes that David had missed from the ladder, there was a fully established living space. The police brought down a plastic bin containing the squatter's belongings. Inside were empty wrappers of my missing granola bars, a bucket he had been using as a toilet, several items of my unwashed laundry, and my missing car keys. The officers deduced that he would wait until I left for work, or until I was in a deep sleep, to climb down. He had been taking showers, eating my food, and wandering around my house for weeks. The stiffness of the bent latch meant nothing to someone who had figured out exactly how to angle it silently from above. I never spent another night in that house. I broke my lease the next morning, moving all my belongings out with the help of 2 armed police officers and several friends. I moved into a high-rise apartment building with a 24-hour security guard and concrete ceilings. I double-check my locks every night, and I keep my phone password protected. The police never caught the man. He vanished into the Pacific Northwest, taking his terrifying secrets with him. But there was one final detail from the police report that still keeps me awake at night. When the officers searched the squatter's nest in my attic, they found a small, spiraled notebook. It wasn't a diary. It was a meticulously detailed logbook. It contained the exact times I left for work, the times I came home, and the exact duration of my showers. But on the very last page, written in jagged handwriting just hours before I discovered the photos on my phone, was a single, chilling sentence. "The locks are changed, but she doesn't know she locked me in here with her."